Over the course of time, I realized something pretty simple, but something that not a lot of people get. It's not always big purchases that are costing our wallets and our budgets. Most of the time, it's the small ones, the small habits, the small routines, the small patterns that we fall into. And when I really started paying attention, I realized there were a handful of things that we were buying over and over again that really weren't worth it. In this video, I'm going to walk through 10 things that I've stopped buying personally and that have made a huge difference in my daily spending and my overall budgeting in general. 10 things that I just avoid buying altogether, and maybe you should too. Coffee. Number one is daily convenience purchases. These are the purchases that we don't necessarily think about all the time because they're just things we buy out of convenience. Hence the name. You stop off for a cup of coffee, you pick up a snack while you're out. Even something like eating fast food just a couple times a week can really add up. I mean, have you seen fast food prices these days? Over the course of weeks, months, and even over a year, these small little convenience purchases that are really easy to justify, to be honest, start to add up a lot. I've used this example previously, but I'll say it again here. If you were to buy a $5 cup of coffee just for the weekdays, so that's 5 days a week, that's $25 over the course of a week. That's $100 over the course of a month, and that's $1,200 over the course of a year. And that's just for a $5 coffee. Not to mention all the other stuff that we buy just out of convenience. It's important to keep track of even these small convenience purchases because again, they really do add up. Number two is small impulse Amazon purchases. I'll be on Amazon shopping for something that I've already predetermined that I need, and then all of a sudden, while I'm just browsing the website, clicking on different things, I see something that I didn't even know I wanted. I didn't even know I needed it, but all of a sudden I do. That turns into me trying to justify why I need it in that moment, and over the course of several minutes, scrolling through the product benefits, it ends up in my cart and eventually ends up on my doorstep. Now you might think, okay, that happens once, twice, it's harmless, right? The problem is this becomes a pattern, this becomes a habit, and it's something that we start to do that I've done more times than I want to count. I've learned to instead do this. Either close the tab altogether once I've found the thing that I'm looking for, or just save it for later, and then just wait a week. If that thing is really, really important, you'll come back around to it, and it'll still be there sitting in your cart. And I know Amazon, it's so easy to just return an item after it's already arrived, but at that point, we're more likely to just keep the item, and then if we do have to return it, that just wastes more time and energy and effort. Let it sit in your cart, take a few nights to sleep on it, and see if you even need or even want that item anymore. Number three is the it's only $10 purchases, or whatever number you put on that. Similar to the daily convenience purchases, we can often justify and feel like we're not spending a lot because it's just $10 or whatever. But like the daily convenience purchases, if we do that a couple times a day, several times a week, a dozen times a month, suddenly that number becomes really, really big. And typically, it's not something that we're budgeting for in the first place. This can become a big trap when you have kids too. I know it has for me. We're at a strip mall or a shopping center, and the kids start asking for this and for that and for that. And because we want to make them happy, it's easy to just justify a small $10 purchase. And besides the issue to that adding up and affecting our budget over time, we're sending our kids the wrong message too. We're telling them it's okay to just justify small purchases whenever we feel like it, as long as it's under a certain amount, instead of being a good steward of the money that we have. It's up to us to teach them how a budget works, and we're not going to do that by going around spending just $10 willy-nilly everywhere. Number four is productivity tools that we don't or won't use. I've talked about this one before too, but this one can become such a huge trap because we think we're buying the productivity. We think and we feel like because we've made a purchase for productivity that it's somehow going to do the work for us. It feels like we're making progress when we haven't actually done anything. We've just spent money. Things that fall into this category are things like planners, calendars, digital assistants, subscriptions to different task managers. There's such a plethora of resources out there, and a lot of them are actually really good. The issue is we haven't exercised that muscle enough to really understand how we're supposed to use these different things. My advice and what's worked for me is just starting small. I just started using my Notepad app on my iPhone. That makes a great task manager, and we'll just put one of those on the wall and add the weekly activities to there. there. We've considered fancy, expensive calendars and even tried them out before, but sometimes the juice is just not worth the squeeze, and oftentimes those tools can have such a learning curve and take so much time to set up that they're not even worth it in the end anyway. Number 5 is buying more organization instead of just getting rid of stuff. Now, I'm all for organizing stuff and clearing out the clutter. We hate clutter here. And storage bins and storage containers can honestly be a really great way to do that if we need to hold on to the stuff. I mean, when it comes down to Christmas stuff, Halloween stuff, all of the different holidays, it makes sense to just store them away for the year and then pull them back out when you need them. But when we start storing old books that we're never gonna read, we start storing, I don't know, old computer parts. I used to do this. And if you're a dad out there, I know you do this too. You save every single cable, cord, charger, or whatever. You put it in a special little bin and it just stays there. You might need it someday, right? The fact is, beyond the holiday stuff, beyond the stuff that we know we're gonna pull out once a year, most of the time it's just not worth it to store some of this stuff. It ends up taking up space. It ends up costing money, especially when we start to delve in renting storage containers. If the value of the stuff that you're storing costs less than what you're paying for to store it, that's an even bigger problem. In the end, it just might be time to get rid of some things. Number 6 is the buying cheap stuff that we're going to end up replacing later. So a few weeks ago, my son asked me if we could get some floating shelves for his room so he could display some of his stuff there. I thought this was a great idea and immediately went to Amazon to start looking for the absolute cheapest version that I could find for floating shelves. Yes, I looked at the reviews to make sure it was like, at least over 4.5 stars or whatever. But my eye was on the price first and foremost. Well, when it came time to actually hang them, we were both sadly disappointed with how cheap they actually felt. We ended up getting what we paid for. In the end, a little bit more research and looking at reviews probably would have revealed this, and the price point should have been my first clue as to the quality of the product. Thankfully, because it was Amazon, I was able to return it, but the whole scenario could have easily turned into a buy twice problem. I bought something cheap the first time, it would have ended up not working out, and then I would have had to have gone out and buy something of higher quality anyway, when I could have just started there in the first place. When buying for necessity, you don't need to always get the top tier, most expensive, highest quality product, but don't fall into the trap of buying so cheap that you're gonna end up having to replace that item anyway. Number 7 is buying for hobbies that we haven't started yet. Oftentimes, we purchase things that we think will motivate us to do an activity, motivate us to get us into a hobby. And similar to the planners and calendars and organization tools, buying this stuff feels like the actual work. More often than not, this stuff ends up in the donate or resale pile. For me, a few years ago, I had this grand vision that I was going to start woodworking and have this massive, beautiful workshop in my garage. I had not done a single woodworking piece in my life up to that point, but I started amassing tools, watching tons of YouTube videos. I was getting inspired. Well, you could probably guess what happened. Some of those tools I still have, they get used from time to time, but most of them ended up on the resale market. This happens a ton of times with exercise equipment too, or gym memberships. Now granted, this approach can work if you're really motivated to do the thing, but most of the time it doesn't. Make sure you're already engaged in the hobby before you start to go out and purchase all the fancy equipment associated with it. And if you have nothing for this particular hobby you want to start small. Start with the resale market yourself. It doesn't have to happen all at once. Number 8 is upgrades that don't actually change anything. Here, hold on a second. Gotta break this out. Okay, so I know this isn't the oldest iPhone in the world. I think it's a 11 or 12. I got it in 2021, maybe at the end of 2020. COVID phone. Anyway, there's so many items like this that we want to upgrade all the time, that we find reasons to upgrade when we don't actually need to upgrade them. This happens a lot in the tech space, to be honest. Every year, companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft spend millions and millions of dollars just to try to get you to upgrade to the next greatest and latest thing. And yes, I've wanted to upgrade my iPhone for years, but honestly, why would I? I have to ask myself the question, if I upgraded the iPhone, what would change? What would be drastically different or improved about my life? Because here's the truth, upgrading this kind of stuff most of the time doesn't really change anything. Number 9 is buying things out of boredom or spending as entertainment. We never want to just shop because we're bored. Now, this seems like it shouldn't be an issue, but I think it may surprise you to know how many people shop just because they're bored. Especially in today's day and age when shopping online is so easy and frictionless, and you can literally have something in your cart and on its way to your home in a matter of minutes, in a matter of clicks or taps. And I know we love that feeling of the Amazon box arriving. We love that feeling, the dopamine rush from slicing open the top and opening up our prize inside. And the problem here should be obvious. We don't want to buy because we're bored. We don't want to turn shopping into a hobby. Again, this should be obvious, but we should be buying out of necessity, not just because it makes us feel good to see the Amazon box on the doorstep. And instead of looking for healthier, more rewarding outlets to fill that void of boredom, we've instead found it in consumerism. All right, last but not least, number 10 is just in case items. For us, this seems to manifest itself primarily in water bottles for some reason. I have just this disdain for extra water bottles lying around now, but it can really come in many different forms. Look, I get it. It's okay to be prepared and to have a backup here or there, but I used to fall into this trap all the time, specifically at Costco. I don't know what it is about Costco, but just walking around their aisles, seeing all the different products laid out, it just brings that impulse purchaser out of me. Just a couple months ago, I almost bought a lunch bag, this really cool lunch bag, just in case. I almost bought an extra cooler just in case we needed it. And then maybe a week or two later, I almost bought this flashlight knife kit for my car, just in case. Don't do it. Don't buy items just in case. Buy items because you actually need them. Remember, it's not oftentimes the really big purchases that can get us into trouble. It's the small little purchases we make here and there, the small little patterns and habits that add up to really big numbers at the end of the month. I think you'd be surprised if you were to look at your bank statement, look at where your small little purchases, your seemingly insignificant purchases are going, and see how they're really adding up and affecting your budget at the end of each month. For me personally, it wasn't one big change that made the difference. It was about removing all the little things that really didn't add any value in the first place. Thank you so much again for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, you are the best. Thank you so much. And if you like this content, please like, please subscribe, please share it or comment down below. Let me know what sort of things that you've stopped buying or things that you've noticed really add up over the month for you. And as always, hope you have a great day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.